Welcome to the Law Firm Growth Podcast, where we share the latest tips, tactics, and strategies for scaling your practice from the top experts in the world of growing law firms. Are you ready to take your practice to the next level? Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Law Firm Growth Podcast. I'm your host as always, Jan Roos, and I am here with a super exciting guest, Geoff Hoatson. One of my favorite practice areas, estate planning, and he runs his practice out of Orlando, family first firm, and very excitingly has grown over 163% in the last couple of years, putting him at pretty high up in the Law Firm 500. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Geoff.
Absolutely, Jan. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so wanted to kind of start stuff up. Been an interesting couple of years for estate planning as a whole, to say the least. But I wanted to kind of step back and take it back to the beginning. So what ended up getting you into estate planning as a practice area back in the day?
Sure. So I would say an answer that is not common among lawyers, but my mother was a physician and I was a firstborn. So naturally, I was going to go to medical school. I was in college taking pre-med courses and realized I hated sciences. So tried to figure out what I was going to do with my life and took the LSAT, did well, went to law school. Obviously, growing up having, physician parent, didn't have a real positive view of lawyers. So, thinking ambulance chasers, all that kind of stuff. So what could I do? Well, I could, help people protect their things, preserve their legacies, that sort of stuff. So that's ultimately why I went to Emory University up in Atlanta, because they have a good estate planning program up there. Then came back down and focused my practice on doing estate planning, and then added elder law later on.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, did you guys have any experience kind of growing up around just I guess the bad things that would happen when people, do you think that having a physician as a mom and the death and incapacity and that kind of stuff had any effect on your choice?
I will say something that did have an effect on my choice was that, so I was at a stoplight, and this is probably about maybe 8 months before I left for law school. I was at a stoplight, light turns green, the person in front of me doesn't go. I take my foot off the brake and tap them. It wasn't a hard anything, just tap. And so she pulls over, I follow her, get out, look at her bumper, it's fine. My bumpers, the cars are fine. She's like, okay, well, I don't think we need to call the police. Just give me your information. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Give her the info. About a month later, we get a demand letter for $85,000 from her attorney.
Oh my God.
Fast forward to the end, it ended up settling for $5,000.
Yeah.
The insurance company paid, but it made me realize that, hey, there's a lot of risk, when you're out there just living life.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, because it's I think that and the stuff that your parents just you've definitely seen the bad side of, I guess, the litigious nature of our society too. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. You don't run into a lot of people that go, I mean, it's kind of a story that we see sometimes where people go into litigation or one of the crazy, stressful practice areas and then find their way to estate planning. But you were pretty much estate planning, pretty much from jump, right?
Yeah.
And then did you end up going into practice right after law school, or just by yourself, or did you end up warming up with working somewhere else?
So I graduated at a really great time. It was 2008. And,
yeah.
I actually went to work for another law firm, worked with them for about 6 months before they shut their doors. Went and found work with a solo, worked with him for about another 10 months before the economy kind of took its toll on him and he couldn't afford to keep me either. That happened he let me go a week after my wife and I closed on our first house.
Oh, geez.
So we had no savings. She wasn't making a lot of money. She's actually a technician. I mean, good money, but not crazy. So, it was enough to kind of pay our base bills. And while I tried to figure out what I was going to do next, looked around, the economy was hemorrhaging lawyers. So there were people willing to work, 10 years experience, willing to work for $35,000 just to, it was almost impossible for me to compete in that market. So I had a buddy who said, well, I could send you some workers' comp cases. It's not too difficult. I can kind of help you through it if you open your own practice. And, it doesn't pay a lot, but that's what I ended up doing to start out.
Okay, gotcha. So we got some workers' comp cases coming in, but your back is basically against the wall financially at this point. And I wanted to kind of get into this too, because we on the pre-call we talked about one of the things that was your favorite parts about the business is kind of the sales and marketing. So let's talk about some of these first clients. So how'd you end up drumming up business back in the day?
So the best way I can describe it is that I was really willing to take I wasn't established enough to be choosy. So I had to take a lot of, kind of bottom of the barrel. I did a lot of networking with other lawyers. So I got referrals from the stuff that nobody wanted.
Mhm.
And, I've only over the last few years been able to kind of be in a position to just turn away business that doesn't feel like it's a good fit for us. But I will say that having handled so many challenging cases, crazy fact patterns, all that sort of stuff has made me and our firm I guess I'll say it gives us a very good foundation to handle the cases that we handle now. And we still will take lots of cases that other law firms won't take, and we handle them really well because we just have that experience of kind of, no matter how crazy it is. One of my first paralegals, after about a month of working for me, she comes into my office and she looked me in the eye and she goes, "I don't know what it is, but trouble finds you." And it seemed like all the crazy cases would always end up in, our lap. I mean, just as an example, like we had to get a birth certificate for a girl who had never had a birth certificate because she was born at home and she was 11 years old.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So you start thinking about that. I'm like, well, how does she go to school? How do you register for school? She doesn't have a social security number,
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, we homeschool her. I'm like, okay. How do you file taxes? Oh, she's our 7th, so we can't claim her as a deduction anyway. Like, okay. So I was trying to I'm like, did these people steal a baby? These are things going through my head. But they had a bunch of, OB records showing that the week before the child was born, she was okay. And they were kind of like, I don't need the government to tell me I've got a child type people,
Yeah.
So anyways, they were trying to get our health insurance. And so we had to go through all this craziness. But that's just like an example of the crazy stuff that we ended up handling over the years.
Okay. Well, it's really interesting too, because it's kind of funny. Like a lot of the times too, it's definitely a tough way to like scale a business, but it's like, even if those things are not either like paying well or in the position where it can scale really well, it's like they pay really well in experience, right? Like I'm sure that the education that like you and the team got over those years of dealing those crazy cases, you probably don't have anyone going to you these days, Jeff, and say, yeah, hey, that's not in the manual. I don't really know how to handle that, right?
Yeah. That's the fortunate thing is I will say that, we have about 35 employees and or comp team members, and between the 35 of us, there's very, very, very little that we don't know or can't figure out, just and we keep our practice areas very narrow now and do those things well. Long gone are the days of taking 11-year-olds with no birth certificate, but I will say that, we feel very confident in our arena and even, in our geographic area that we have a level of expertise that just nobody else can match.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also the expertise and also the willingness to deal with the uncertainty too. Like that's kind of a hard thing to come by and definitely the hard thing to reinforce in terms of like your team and stuff too. So like major kudos on that. But I want to talk a little bit about, so we've had the stage where we're taking some of these kind of one-leggers. I've got a couple clients call these. But at what point did you start like scaling up the marketing and going beyond the networking and stuff?
So we were able to build a pretty decent size practice, probably somewhere in a little over $500,000 annual revenue, just by me doing that, going out word of mouth, taking people to lunch every single day. That was probably my main form of marketing, was just taking people out to lunch and connecting with them. And that's really just a numbers game. Some are going to send you, some won't, but the more at-bats you get, the more hits you get.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did that for quite a while. And then it was 2016 that I hired a full-time marketer. That it's kind of a lengthy story, but the gist of it is she was working for basically a competitor and didn't have an enforceable non-compete. They were out of a different geographic location. I had her come over to work for me. They obviously were unable to enforce her non-compete and didn't try. And she took her existing book of business and brought it to us. So that was really kind of the first step that we took that allowed us to kind of move our marketing beyond what I was able to do.
Okay. And as far as kind of those first things too, I love to kind of dig into this because I honestly think one of the hardest transitions that any law firm makes is going from referrals to something that's not necessarily, dependent on shoe leather and like lunch bills and stuff. Right. So what did you guys focus on those first days? Because for anyone in the audience right here, that's kind of at that stage too, I think this is just like a super critical transition.
Yeah. So it was really a combination of two things. It was doing presentations, workshops, that sort of stuff. Kind of it gets a little dependent on my time because we're doing a lot of the stuff in person these days. We're able to kind of have quote unquote the evergreen workshops and that sort of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of, for lack of a better term, shoe leather from that marketer. She was going and making introductions, going and explaining our value propositions to those people. And then it was a healthy dose of just kind of social media content marketing, just to, I think the beautiful thing about content marketing isn't necessarily going to draw in new clients in and of itself. But I do believe that it has the ability to bring in referrals from existing clients by keeping you top of mind with them, reminding them of what you do on a regular basis, whether that's social media or newsletters and things like that, to stay up there so that when they do have a friend or family member who has a need that you can solve, they're thinking, oh yeah, I just heard from Geoff, I got the guy for you. So those are the things that we did. We have on and off used some online marketing companies, vendors, had kind of mixed results with that. We're in the process of taking another swing that right now, but that's kind of something that's is very much in the works. So I can't sit here and tell you, oh yeah, we've had X level of success with that.
Yeah. So it was your marketer taking potentially a partner out to get access to their audience, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, it was going to the people who deal with our ideal clients every single day. And, instead of me, and this is specific to the area of our Medicaid practice, with that part of the elder law firm where we're getting Medicaid for seniors in nursing homes. In Florida, we have a lot of people in nursing homes. We have a lot of seniors here.
Yeah.
So knowing that, we would go to senior health companies, whether that's a residential company, whether it's an in-home company, whether they're geriatricians or hospitals or those places who are going to deal with seniors. And we would talk to them about how we could help their clients, but also help them. Because I think one of the most powerful marketing messages when you're talking to referral partners is not what you do for their patient, but how you make your referral partner life easier, make them look better to their boss, make their job more seamless, the more stuff that you can take off their plate. So if you have a really powerful message that demonstrates not, hey, we're going to do good for your client, obviously, but more importantly, we're going to make your life easier. That becomes a very compelling message and, something that a lot of people bite onto.
Well, yeah, it's interesting too, because if you have a situation where it's truly complementary, it's people are coming to you for the same reason they're coming to a lot of these same people, right? It's they want to be taken care of. And whether that's, the person who's going to be changing their sheets and maintaining their, their apartment, or it's, their legal needs and making sure everything's taken care of, both of you guys benefit from having that kind of a situation, which is super cool. But I also think it's really interesting. These seem like a lot of kind of non-conventional things, because when we talk to estate planning attorneys, a lot of times it's really, block and tackle, financial advisors, accountants, that kind of stuff too. But did you guys have more of and how did you guys kind of adapt the strategy to these a little bit more unconventional partners, so to speak?
My experience with a lot of the financial advisors that I spoke with, was that they were looking for a lot of one-to-one relationship. You give me a referral, I'll give you one, kind of back and forth. And I have a couple advisors that, I have close relationships with and refer to me, and, I refer back to them. But the problem, I guess, from that mentality was that, one of my referrals might have a lifetime value of 10 of your referrals to me, because with what we do, it's mostly, just flat fee, transactional. Yeah, there may be updates down the line, but that's questionable. So I just did not feel like the volume that I was looking for, I could get from financial advisors, CPAs, any of that sort of stuff. And I should say, I wasn't able to do that. I'm sure some people are, but where I wanted to grow, I didn't think I could do with just those advisors, which prompted me to look to, hey, what are other areas that we can grow referrals in our services? And, with the Medicaid / elder law side of things, that was a much more untapped market, if you will. There was a lot of opportunity there, and there weren't a lot of people filling that need.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because like, if it's kind of a one-to-one sort of situation, like, you're not really getting any leverage on that relationship. That's just taking people out to lunch with extra steps at that point. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But, maybe connecting the dots a little bit on some of the content marketing stuff, which I didn't follow up on last time, but like, having that intermediary step, right? So it's like, you've got the social media we have, and I definitely want to dig into how you guys have gotten that apparatus up and running and under control for itself. But it's like, it's so much easier to say, hey, check out this presentation, check out this blog post, check out this video, then, hey, like, you got to have lunch with so-and-so, because there's pressure on both sides of that too. Like, it's not convenient for you guys from your time. And it's also like the person, like, look, they know what's going on. You set up an appointment with somebody and,
Sure.
you kind of get the opportunity to have a little bit more of a date before you get married for these situations. But okay. So I want to kind of dig into the content stuff too. I'm super fascinated about the presentation stuff. So when you ended up getting these things together, how'd you end up developing your content for that? Was that something that you guys had been working on for a while, or like, how'd you end up getting a presentation that worked for you?
Oh, it was horrible at first.
Okay, that's how
everything at the outset was terrible. I feel so frequently, and I fell into this trap, that lawyers want to impress people with how much they know.
Mm-hmm.
And people, frankly, do not care how much you know. They want to know if there's a problem out there that they already have, that you can solve it. And if they don't know that they have that problem, they want to know if whatever you're talking about is really relevant to them. And so you need to, clearly demonstrate that they actually do have a need for your services and that you can fill that need. So at the beginning, I'm just up there like trying to be a law school professor.
Right.
And sure, we had great attendance. Everybody said it was super informative, but we weren't getting a lot of conversions. And over time, I just continued to refine and refine. I paid for courses to teach you how to do a better job of giving people what they need in a way that helps them see that they need to take action on that. And, just through researching and watching and paying for resources, we refined that process to the point that, now when we have workshops, a lot of people are then very interested in moving forward with our firm after we talk to them.
Right. Gotcha. I know this is maybe a crazy question, but like, if you take that presentation that you guys are putting on today versus the presentation that you guys were doing in the beginning, what would you say is the biggest difference? Or like, in your opinion, like, what's like the biggest lever over the years that you guys have picked up for anyone who might be considering doing something similar?
It is so much shorter now.
Interesting. Okay. How long do you guys go for yours?
I don't like going more than 15 minutes.
Wow. 15 minutes.
Well, for the online stuff, like if it's in person, I'll go for 30 to 40, because otherwise it feels like, like, why did I drive all the way out here?
Right.
And I try to have a healthy amount of Q&A at the end, which I kind of love, because that's where I feel like that's where I get to show off how much I know.
Right.
Because when I'm taking unsolicited, let me not unsolicited there, very much like, hey, ask me questions, but having people, just off the cuff, ask questions that I wasn't prepared for and knowing the answer to those, that's, I feel like, the most powerful way of demonstrating how much I know, because I don't know what's coming, but I'm able to answer them. So in person, it's a longer thing, but with the online, I don't have a lot of, I don't want to use the word patience. Maybe I don't have patience. Maybe that's too, but I don't have a lot of, I don't know, I guess ability to just sit there and just watch a video. Like, I can't stay on YouTube. I guess I'm the craziest person in my generation, because everyone's always sending me YouTube videos saying, hey, you got to watch this or check this out. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like 5 minutes, I can't pay attention that long. So I try to keep mine kind of shorter and just kind of really make it clear about what the problem is that we can help and what that help looks like. And so for people who come with that problem, it's very clear that it's a pitch directly to them. They're listening saying, oh my gosh, this guy knows exactly what my issues are. He knows exactly what I'm going through. He knows exactly the result that I want. And 10 to 15 minutes is plenty of time for somebody to get that. And when you feel seen on that level, it's really easy to connect to that company and say, geez, you know what? This person understood me. They understood my problem. They understood the whole picture, the way I can't sleep at night, the things I'm talking to my spouse about. They know it all. And so then it becomes a no-brainer as to who am I going to choose to help me solve this problem? The people who understand it.
Yeah. Do you remember that? And like, I think you reminded me of this, what's that old quote? I think it's Jim Rohn or something like that. It's like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so like, okay, and then as far as how the kind of setup works today, so you mentioned you had 35 team members that are working with you right now. Are you still the person who's on deck for most of these presentations, or have you scaled this out to other people in the team? Like, what does that whole marketing apparatus look like these days?
So the answer is I had scheduled them out to other team members. We dialed that back. So I work with a coach who tells me that, I'm basically going to have to be involved, doing the marketing, all that, kind of handling escalations and emails and, just all those sorts of issues until we're about a $10 million firm.
Mhm.
Beyond that point, then, the level of marketing that you see in the community, those sorts of things, people kind of realize that you're the face, but you're not the person. I'm in Orlando. John Morgan is from Orlando. His headquarters are here. And he's everywhere, right? But nobody expects to get John because he's like on his estate in Maui, 9 months out of the year or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, obviously I am not, will probably never, I have no aspirations to get to his level. But the point of it is that, once you get past a certain level, people aren't really expecting you anymore.
Mm.
So right now it is me involved in that. And I recognize that it is going to be for a minute, and I will still always be involved with the marketing in some degree, being the face of the organization, just like John Morgan is. That guy's got like a whatever $1 billion firm or whatever it is. I don't know, some obscene, but his face is on everything.
Mm. Well, I mean, it makes sense too, because that's your strength and that's what you enjoy. Like you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you you got out of the driver's seat for that, right?
Yeah.
At least at this point. But okay, that's super cool. And then as far as kind of like the rest of the content of so beyond the presentations and kind of those initial consultations, like have you gotten this? I imagine you guys, you're not personally doing a lot of the content marketing and that kind of stuff, right? So how does the marketing team like outside of the presentations?
Yeah. So believe it or not, I have one person who she was served. Let me see. What did she do first? She started with us as reception.
Mm.
And, then became kind of like a marketing assistant. And now she does basically all of our graphics design, all of our social media content. But like, I'll say, hey, I want a presentation on pick a topic, whatever. She'll go design it, fill in the content on it, and then I'll go and edit it. But it's normally 90 to 95% good. Like she's just picked up so much through reading the content that I drafted and prepared over the years and having to, research and create other pieces that she just kind of like knows what we do now. And so it's easy for her to just kind of put together the stuff that we need. So she fortunately has a lot of that content in her head. Obviously, if we're creating new pieces of content, I'm doing a lot of drafting on that. We do have some of the lawyers in the office who help with that too, but it's really a mixed bag. Kind of everyone pitches in, and I'm still pretty involved in it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing too. Like the delegating creativity is like a very, very tough thing. And plus, like, with the experience you had at this point, like so much of that is in your head. I mean, it's also fantastic you have somebody who can get something to 90, 95% too. I can definitely think there's a lot of people in your position who would kill for a person like that in that position. Yeah. So that's awesome. Okay. So I know kind of like going on to the other attorneys too. I know the other thing that we wanted to, so I hate talking about marketing without talking about sales. And I know for sure that you're not handling on the consultations right now. So how do you guys as an organization think about, what to do with all the, I guess sales process and like what you guys are doing with all this business that you guys are generating from the marketing that you're doing?
Yeah. So I have I think it's 3 out of the 4 of our practice areas, we have non-attorney salespeople.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's super interesting. Love to talk about that.
Yeah. that's a big conversation, but I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, so the one area that we do not do that in is guardianship currently, because we've just found that there can be some areas in guardianship that can be a little tricky to uncover. And our lead guardianship attorney wants to be kind of selective about what guardianships we bring on, especially because, we are carrying, I think, somewhere close to about 350 open active guardianship matters. So, and we have through some other, I'll say organizational sources, corporate sources, whatever you want to call that, frequent referrals. So we have to keep kind of bandwidth open for those. So we're kind of selective about I'll say community guardianships that we take on.
Yeah. I mean, it's way more of a hangover for that stuff too, because, those things can last for years if it gets in.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. I mean, until that person dies or they age up to 18 or gain capacity, which rarely happens. Yeah. We're on that. We're stuck on that. So, those are the ones that she handles. Just about everything else, the non-attorney salespeople handle. We have 2 of them. We're probably going to be bringing on a 3rd here within the next, I would say, 3 months.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I'm guessing that's sticking to more like the transactional stuff and all that. But to the devil's advocates in the crowds, right? Like, I've heard this stuff all the time too. Well, how are you supposed to provide legal advice if you don't have an attorney in the consultation? I know there's an answer to it, but I'm really like, what's your perspective to the doubters that are thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, to that answer, I would say like that's like saying like, how do I let somebody drink my Slurpee without having them pay for it? Right? I mean, the idea is ludicrous that I'm just going to give somebody legal advice, like giving away what is my stock in trade to somebody just because they walked in my office. I mean, okay, if you're going to do a paid consultation, okay, sure, I can understand that a bit, and we do offer that. If people don't want to meet with, so our non-attorney salespeople, they're free. Come in, meet with them. They're going to understand your situation. They're going to figure out if we can help you. And then they're going to see if you're a good fit for our law firm, for our processes. If those things line up, we'll offer you the invitation to work with us. If not, we might refer you somewhere else.
Yeah.
But if we have someone who's like, no, I just want a lawyer. I just want to talk to a lawyer. You can talk to me, but you're going to pay to talk to me. So the vast majority of people choose to just meet with the non-attorney salespeople. We call them client needs coordinators. And, they sit down with them and figure out they try to unpack all the different things that are there. Obviously, sometimes it's not perfect. We give the attorneys ultimate decisions, whether or not, we disengage from those clients or we need to upsell or downsell or change what was sold to them, and the clients know that. But it takes, so, the way I look is when I have an attorney doing a sales, that is the most expensive salesperson I will ever have.
Super true. Yeah.
And frankly, most lawyers are pretty terrible at sales. They're not salespeople. They're technicians. They're think of like engineers, CPAs, like those type of people that love the law and love fixing, and doing and going in there and trying to demonstrate value. Most of the time, they just go in there and give away the farm. They're like, okay, here's exactly how we're going to do everything. Here's exactly what you need to do. And then these people are like, well, shoot, what do I need you for?
Yeah.
So, if we have non-attorney salespeople in there, they can't give legal advice. Bar rules prevent them from doing it. So all they can do is identify, you have a problem? Okay, you have a problem. We can help you solve that problem. How? Well, we're going to schedule you for a design session or a strategy session with the attorney, and they're going to go through all the different options you have. I've heard them before talk about ideas such as this and this and this. I can't tell you that that's what's going to be right for you. The attorney's going to make that determination. But those are just some examples of things I've heard them recommend in the past.
Yeah.
There you go.
Dude, honestly, I might get on a soapbox for a little bit too, because I think like this is just like it's a terrible norm that's been established in the industry since the beginning of it. And it's like, okay, to talk to somebody, you're giving away what, $300-500, maybe $1,000 worth of time too. And it's just an absolutely like insane. Look, now more than ever with the unemployment rates in the legal industry and what it takes to get a good first year attorney, like I think we're kind of in a position as an industry where it's like a forcing function for people. Like, do you really need somebody with a JD to have this conversation? And honestly, I couldn't agree more. All the Mount Rushmore of sales training, all the Sandler stuff and all that stuff. It's like, you shouldn't be answering questions. If you're answering questions, you're losing in the sales conversation.
Yeah. You should be asking questions.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, they need to be answering the questions.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So dude, yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more on that. Now, the one thing is that like, this is something I'm genuinely curious about. So, it's always, there are the norms about who you would get into the position. And, a lot of times you're leveling up a paralegal or an associate or a junior attorney to kind of start going to these consultations. But when you take the JD out of the picture, where do you look for people to be these, non-attorney salespeople?
Frankly, I want salespeople.
There you go.
I don't want the concept that you're going to take a paralegal, somebody who's like good at handling cases, and somehow make them good at selling people is lunacy to me. I want somebody who, I've heard this statement, that you can't make salespeople. I don't know that I totally agree with it, but I do think there is, because we have our salespeople in a regular routine training where they have daily mindset calls and weekly coaching calls. So it's nothing that we do. We pay for this. It's an outside vendor. But once we started that, our close rate doubled basically. So it's great. It's huge. That's great for us. So I'm a big believer in this program. But the point of it is, I think you can make people more effective, but I think there needs to be a base level of ability. And I think in a lot of cases, that's like a level of intuitiveness and personal connection that you can't teach somebody. You can teach them the script and how to ask the questions and things. And I've done that. Like I had a lawyer who was a very junior associate. He was basically right out of law school. We hired him thinking, we could give him, train him right and everything. And it didn't work out. Okay. But go in there, he'd be dealing with probate consults and he'd be asking questions. And the answer would be like, oh yeah, my mom just died 3 days ago, whatever. Be like, oh, okay. And so did she leave any, like, bro, what?
Yeah.
If you don't recognize it in that moment, you need to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What? And like show some empathy, connect with this person. Like they just lost somebody who's incredibly important to them. And I get it. He's trying to make sure that he collects all the information he needs to make sure he can prepare the documents. But like, that's not enough.
Yeah. And you can't write the script for that. You can't write the script for that.
No. I can't tell you how to be compassionate. You either get that or you don't. And for me, I don't know if you're familiar with the predictive index or not.
Is that DISC?
It's like a person. It's like DISC. It's more involved in DISC. It's in my opinion, better than a lot of other personality things out there. But I have a social factor that, so one of the things is like social or like kind of like independent factor. Mine's like, I'm more social than like 99% of the people in this world. Mm-hmm. It's why I can never shut up. I'm just constantly talking, I'm just sure I drive people nuts. But the bottom line is like, I connect with people and I want to connect with people. And then the whole legal aspect of it's kind of like an afterthought to me. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy sales. I enjoy connecting with people. It's just a terrible use of my time because I need to be spending it in other places. Mm-hmm. But that's what we look for. People who have at least enough of a social factor that they're going to be able to connect with people like intuitively. And then if they have sales experience, perfect. We're going to continue to build off that. If they don't, well, we're still going to try to coach them up and see if they can be successful at what they're doing. And sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. But that's kind of been our approach to it. And we've seen a lot of great success with that.
Yeah, dude, that's fantastic. And it's kind of, I got to take this from another podcast host, Moshe Amsal. Like he really hates the term intake because when you use the term intake, people just, they just try to dance around the fact that there has to be a sale that's going to be made. And mm-hmm. when we prevent like even thinking about things in terms of sales, we prevent looking for people that have a background in sales, we prevent ourselves from training those people with sales material. And we just wind up with cruddy salespeople at the end of the day. And I just think like, as an industry, I think it's just like, it's just so important to move past that stuff. And, the people who are going to be doing that are going to be in the position where you are, where you're out of the sales thing. You're probably, I can imagine like, I remember the first time I got out of the situation and I looked at a retainer that was closed that I had nothing to do with. And I was like, damn, this is a really cool moment. And I know people are running multi-million dollar firms that still close their own deals. No joke. And it's like,
I will be candid and say that, I do sometimes end up because people pay to meet with me. So I do it. But, I'll tell you that I went on about 10-day vacation. We went overseas just a few weeks ago. And in that week, when I was out of the office the whole time, it was actually the first vacation where I've actually completely disconnected and not tried to be involved with anything that was going on. I didn't check in with my team. I just like, I'm going to focus on my family. I was for a wedding. We were over in Italy. It was wonderful. But in that week, we collected, I think, over $100,000. And I was not involved with any of it.
That's a dream.
That's a great feeling.
God, that's so fantastic. Okay, awesome, man. So we're getting towards the end of the hour. And I just wanted to ask, as far as kind of like a last question. So, what's next for Family First Firm? Where are you guys looking to go?
So everywhere. No, I'm kidding.
World domination.
That's it. Yeah. What realistically we're probably going to be doing over the next year or so is going to be slowly expanding out of the Central Florida area where we are currently trying to finish saturating is probably the best way I can describe it. I think there's still a little bit of juice left to squeeze out of this area. And then we're probably going to be hitting the major metropolitan areas around the state of Florida. I don't think we'll ever expand outside of the state, but my goal is to be the John Morgan, Mike Morris, whoever of elder law firm in Florida, elder law, I should say, in Florida. Because realistically, there is a lot of opportunity in this area. And I think we have probably the best head start on anybody out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, there's definitely enough people in Florida, enough old people in Florida, and no one in this country is getting any younger. So It's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, Geoff. I super appreciated the time. I think we're right at the, but thank you so much for coming on. Dude, I think this was a fantastic conversation with a lot of stuff that some people need to hear. So thank you so much for being forthcoming with your opinions on this stuff too. So it's been great. And then for anyone who's looking to get in touch, what's the best way to find you?
You can check out our website at www.familyfirstfirm.com. I would say that's going to have all of our information. You can reach out to us through that. My email address is Geoff, but it's GEOFF @familyfirstfirm.com. So feel free to email me directly. I don't know how much help I can be to anybody, but you're welcome to reach out.
Okay, awesome. I don't know. Let's see if any young guns want to join the team, start closing like fire. We'll see. Anyways. Okay, awesome, Geoff. Thanks again so much for the time, and for everybody else, I'll see you guys next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern on the Law Firm Growth Podcast.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Growth Podcast. For show notes, free resources, and more, head on over to casefuel.com/podcast. Looking forward to catching up on the next episode.